Hi, this is Krista with Bite Size Travel. I'm going to be showing some pictures from my recent Camino de Santiago. I started in Leon in northern central Spain and walked to Santiago de Compostela. Provided an inset map here to give you an idea of where the route was located in Spain. You see I was in the northwestern region. Let's begin. Quick facts about the Camino. What is commonly called the Camino de Santiago actually comprises dozens of different routes, starting as far away as Paris and further afield in Europe, culminating in Santiago de Compostela in the Galician province in northwestern Spain. In 2014 to date, 231,000 people have completed the Camino in Santiago, reporting at the Pilgrim Office, which is up significantly from 2013, where 216,000 people completed. And of that 216,000 people in 2013, 3,300 of them were Canadians. Of those completing the Camino, 87% of them walk, 12% of them ride a bike. The remaining less than 1% complete in a wheelchair or other wheeled device or by horseback. 25% of people who completed the Camino in 2013 walked the last 100 kilometers starting from Sarria and heading west. My Camino de Santiago was 330 kilometers over 15 days, and I carried approximately 15 pounds in my backpack. Provided a few images here of what that looks like. On the left, you have a picture of all of my clothes, ranger rolled and ready for packing. The center image is my hiking poles that arrived very safely at the Barcelona airport. On bitesizetravel.ca, you can find a post about how I packed those hiking poles. And on the far right is a picture of my pack and poles taking a little break when we were heading out on a particularly long, warm day. So why do people complete the Camino? It is an ancient pilgrimage, religious pilgrimage route, which has evolved over time to being a spiritual pilgrimage. It's cultural for those who want to see and experience Spain and all of its wonder and glory. It's an outdoor adventure. There's plenty of exercise and fitness activities to enjoy along the way. And one of the things that you learn when you start interacting with people is that everyone walks their own Camino, and that means based on their personal reasons for doing it and what they hope to get out of it and what they experience along the way, given the limitations or the allowances of their body and their motivation. And it does become a very uniquely individual experience. And the reasons that people do it are often intensely personal. From my own experience, I remember encountering people that were there to remember someone who was no longer in their life, or to reset as they were moving on to a different point in their life. And it is just such a uniquely personal experience. You just have to experience it for yourself to appreciate that. So I started in Lyon, like I said. Day one was all about learning the routine, and immediately from setting out, we ran into a torrential thunder and lightning storm with very heavy rains, and a group of us took shelter under a Repsol gas station canopy. You also learn right away that signage is not always as helpful as you might think, and on this particular sign in particular, you see that it's actually been amended to show where you actually are when you're looking at the sign. Here's me encountering my first horses on the way. Very excited to see my first Camino wildlife. And throughout the day, as the day wore on, we got to see more of just kind of the calm beauty that you see in that part of Spain. This was between Leon and Villa de Mazarife. It was very flat, it was very easy walking, and it was just kind of a lovely way to spend the day. One of the things that we learned from day one is also how to go about finding accommodation for the evening, and learning what to expect when you arrive in a new setting. So in this case, this was the dormitory at the Albergue San Antonio de Padua in Villa de Mazarife. And the bottom two images are just from my wandering around in the town and getting to know my temporary home for up to 12 hours. Next day was an incredibly long, way too long 31 kilometers. I set out with a beautiful sunrise and being walked out of town by the roosters and my new friends that I had made the night before, and quickly started getting a sense of the pace and the busyness of the Camino. One place in particular was the ancient bridge in Hospital de Orbigo. The particular day that I was there, I was all excited to cross, and then I heard some commotion coming towards me. And next thing, hundreds of cyclists were participating in a community bike ride. So I had to just take a quick break and lean up against the side of the bridge and enjoy the experience of what was going on around me. The day got pretty long and it got pretty hot, and what I discovered was my first of many very unique Camino commemorations that you run into along the way. And this one acquires various rocks and trinkets and other um, little bits of souvenir from pilgrims that go before you. On the way into Astorga, if you've been there, you'll know it. This is David in his Asociación La Casa de los Dioses. It's a juice stand. It's a spiritual retreat. It's an opportunity to meet a really lovely and charming person. And finally, my last day, the end of a very long day, ended with what I thought was going to be enthusiasm until I got to this point, looking out over Astorga and realizing that I was still 6 kilometers away. In the end, it was fine, but that day was a valuable learning experience about how far to go on day 2 of a very long walk. 3 was a short and easy 21 kilometers. The conditions were pretty ideal. It was a little cool, a little misty, and this is my first experience seeing the little notes and commemorations that pilgrims leave for each other along the way. And I got to visit the famous Maison Cowboy in El Ganso, and it is a cowboy bar. Lots of cowboy-themed memorabilia around, and just a really lovely, funny, charming barman who was there quite happy to sell me a coffee and let me take in the cowboy ambiance. And one of the things that you notice when you're going into Rabanal del Camino, which is where I ended this day, was a kilometer or so of fencing. And along the way, pilgrims have fashioned crosses out of sticks and twigs and various grasses and leaves and things, and have started covering the fence with them. So it's almost a wall of crosses that take you into town. It's quite remarkable. The next day, I was heading up into the mountains and making a stop once I hit daybreak at the Cruz de Ferro, which again is an intensely personal experience for pilgrims. Most people leave a small stone of some kind that they've brought with them from home, and this was one that I brought from Scott's Bay on the Bay of Fundy in western Nova Scotia, very close to my family home. And it was just a very quiet, calm morning, and just a really lovely opportunity to spend some time there thinking about the people that weren't necessarily there with me in body that day, but were certainly there with me in spirit. And like I say, it was pretty chilly that day. I was happy to have my fleece and my headgear, and I even had a pair of gloves tucked away in that pocket. Coming out of the fog, though, we headed into much nicer weather and got to meet the first of many lovely and curious Camino cows that were charming companions along the route. If you've been along this way, past the Cruz de Ferro, you pass through Manjarin, and you get to meet Tomas, the Templar Knight, and kind of legendary Camino stop. He provided comfort and snacks and a nice coffee on what was an otherwise very cool day. Lots of little kitties and a dog there hanging around, just looking for someone to talk to, or maybe drop them a little snack. And finally, my day culminated in El Acebo, descending down into the mountain. It's a very small town full of options for pilgrims for accommodation, and it was just a really nice, quiet stop along the way. The next day was the end of my first 100 kilometers, and I made a pretty short day of it. It was 15 kilometers from El Acebo to Ponferrada. And this was a very lovely day for me because I encountered not one, but 2 different rainbows. One just outside of Molina Seca, and another just as I was on my way into Ponferrada. And it was just a lovely, just a very just charming moment along the day. And it just made me smile the rest of the day, and still makes me smile to this day when I think about it. This was also where I ran into the largest place where I stayed along the way. The municipal albergue in Ponferrada sleeps up to, I believe, 180 people, and this room had 34 people in it, and was a pretty close sleep. I'm glad I had the experience, but I don't know that I care to repeat it anytime soon. And finally, on Wednesdays, when you visit Ponferrada, all of the town's museums are free. So I got to visit the Templar Knights castle and wasn't expecting to, but certainly had a lovely time doing that.